We're doing, we got, we tried this live stream thing, so it took us a little bit of time, but we said we'll talk about the game between Serbia and England. So it's been a little while. England won 1-0, which is great. And the thought was to have our immediate thoughts on the game. So, Dom, I've got Dom directly live with me. Dom, what did you make of the game?
Hi, Dev. Yeah, this is our first attempt at going live, so stick with us, bear with us as we kind of go through it together. It's not so simple. It's the first time, so yeah. But no, the game was actually quite fun. It was to be honest, I expected more from England, and to a certain extent, this game reminds me. Well, it was similar to Spain Croatia, only England didn't score three goals, and Serbia actually held their ground. And I think Croatia had a similar type of game, but they conceded three goals. So it's a bit of a, it's weird. It's football. It's football. That's the right way to say it. But yeah, England for being the heavy favorites, not just in this game but the whole tournament. I don't think they've really lived up to that big hype that usually comes with a huge team as England. So how about you, Dev? What do you think?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the verticality thread from the Spain Croatia game. England 69%, 66% long balls. For what did you feel about that? Is Football has obviously changed. The modern game has changed, but are we truly seeing the death of possession? And is this a trend that we're going to see in the Euros?
I think it more has to do with international football being different than club football, and we have seen some teams like Germany, for example, being strong teams in possession, having these structures that kind of remind you a lot of clubs, not just international sides. But yeah, England. There's a couple of reasons, and I feel like Southgate, for all the big names and huge players that he has at his disposal, I feel like he has kind of misprofiled them, right? So you have Hurricane up top, you use Hurricane as a target man, and then you have Pickford hoof these long balls into Kane, and you use one of the best number nines of the planet that has the playmaking, that has the link up, that has that deep connection with the midfielders. You use him solely as a target man. I feel like that to me screams big difficulties for a coach that's just meant to be there to platform his best players, right? That is all the coach has to do on the national stage. Just be there, provide the best possible environment for your best possible players, and that's it. That's your job. You don't have to be a master tactician. You don't have to be a strategist. You don't have to be a Pep or an Arteta or an Nagelsmann. Just be someone who puts the players in the right positions, and that's it, right? You enable them, and that's your role. And Southgate, with this long ball approach, with this kind of a team that doesn't have clear ideas for their very best players, that to me, it just screamed insecurity, it screamed weakness for an England side that's meant to be a giant, right? So I didn't like it. To be fair, I didn't like it. It did get in the result in the end, but it was a very shaky 1-0, Dev. And I would say that if they go ahead and play like this against some of the bigger teams, they might get into trouble.
But it's the overall game, like 0.32, that was England XG versus 0.08, that was like Serbia. It was like nobody even wanted to go and create a little bit more of an opportunity or a more dynamic game. It was like everybody was, holding on, which is okay, which is cup tournaments are like that. Like you hold on,
Mhm.
you try to mitigate and you try to get a result in the initial stages because that's so important. Winning that first game is so important in a cup tournament, right? So you hold in. So I get it. But overall, like 55-45 ball possession, there's hardly anything there. There was nothing in the XG, as I said. Passes, total number of passes, overall, all game, like England had about 323 passes
Yeah.
to Croatia's 262. So, and the long ball percentage that we talked about, right? So overall, um, are these two just defensive? Did we just witness two teams that were just focused on being way defensive than is required? But that was only because of the um, you know current situation and winning that first game. What is Barca fans saying? Using decent players in their own positions as the second pivot, left wing, left back, would have made the difference instead of showing a Cam and two right backs in those positions. Yeah, maybe. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, England lack that. I mean, when you look at that left, the lackings of this England team, what was the things that they lacked the most? They lacked depth and width on the left side, especially. So you had Foden who would kind of go inside and occupy those central zones as he normally does, but they don't have a left back who can compensate for the lack of width. So you have Trippier who kind of he can hold width, but not really. What he would rather do, he would also kind of crash inside in those inside areas and be the more central presence as well. And on the right side, you have Saka, who can kind of, yeah, of course, he could potentially hold with, but he doesn't necessarily. But he has Walker next to him who can compensate much more in that sense. On the left side, the dynamics were much worse. I feel like, and that's where England kind of lost out on. And to touch upon your thoughts on being defensive, yeah, England kind of moved into this 4-5-1 deep block, and I feel
Four five
like
one big block. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like with so much passiveness in that block, they were just inviting so much pressure and inviting crosses and deep distributions into the box. And Serbia are the tallest team in the tournament, right? They know what their strengths are. They know they can outmuscle this England side. They know they can be physical with them and get away with it, right? And win out on those terms. And England just invited that pressure on top of them. They had Rice, to be fair, to kind of cover up for it. They had Jude Bellingham, who is a work rate machine as well. So they had workers who do a lot of defensive work as well. But if this was a side with a bit more individual quality, a bit more differential quality, I think we would have seen a different result altogether. But yeah, the left wing and the left back, the dynamism or the dynamics, I think that the Barca fans, you are right to point out, because that was a big mistake on Southgate's part, because he misprofiled those players. He put on a big attacking unit, but those players, they have the superior individual quality, but they don't have the cohesion and the complementary profiles that we always talk about for Barca, for example. We always talk about the players being of supreme quality, of the high technical quality, but they don't necessarily have the right profiles to be next to each other in those phases of play. So I feel like, yeah, that is a big problem for England at the moment. And Southgate has to be there to create the best possible environment for those players, and he just hasn't.
Yeah, and it's weird because if you look at these players individually in, let's say, teams like Arsenal and teams like Liverpool and Manchester City, these players
Yeah.
actually play differently in those setups. So,
Hmm.
is it an entirely Gareth Southgate issue that the team played the way it did, or is it just national team and cup tournaments flavor that suddenly we see this situation and that phenomena? Because it's not the first time we're seeing it. We see this in England
Hmm.
in every almost in every cup tournament that they're in.
I don't know. It's kind of strange for me to see a Southgate team that is completely out of sorts defensively as well. It's kind of it felt weird, but most of all, it felt like they were lacking the confidence. Right? I didn't look at this England side as full superstars. That is the clear favorite according to the bookies for the whole tournament to win the whole thing. The team that was in the final last time around, right, against Italy, albeit they lost, but that's besides the point. I didn't see that belief in that mentality. I mean, we are tacticians mostly and statisticians here because we talk about stats and tactics and strategy. But in cup tournaments and international tournaments, the mentality side is huge. So I feel like maybe when they go into this international stage and they're not feeling at top of the game. If they're not feeling the support of the coach or the environment that he has presented with them, if that is not top notch, you kind of struggle, right? So I feel like that's one of the big points for this England side. Because yes, you're right. These are the players from Man City, from Liverpool, for Arsenal, and they're all very aggressive, very confident, very dominant players who would normally in a club setting play a much different game. And all of a sudden, you have them here and they're scrambling. They don't know what to do. They're hoofing the ball forward just to clear it from their box, and they have the quality, they have the talent to actually calm down and say, okay, we are the ones that are going to control the game. you're gonna play on our terms, not vice versa, and that's how it should have been, but it wasn't. And I think a big part is down to Southgate because he was the one who picked the side. He was the one who well failed to create the environment, the platform for those players. As good as they are, they need a platform, and they didn't have one.
Well, the good thing is that England won. And even better for those who support him is what a season Jude Bellingham is having, right?
Oh yeah.
Uh, did everything that he had to do with Real Madrid, came in, and then even today it was his goal that sealed the deal. So I think, but I guess maybe it was like they got the goal so early. I don't know, the 13th or 14th minute, correct? It came in, and then they just shut shop probably just to hold on to the leads. I don't know what it was, but that's what it may have been like. But beside that, do you think, Dom, a couple of things like in Liga, I felt that Bellingham lost a little bit of steam at the end of the season. His start was spectacular, right? But again, obviously, a lot of games here in this tournament. Do you think Bellingham has a chance to be one of the players of this tournament?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the quality that he has, that's just off the charts. As much as it pains me to say it, because we're Barca fans and he's a Madridista, so it hurts to say that aloud. But no, he's absolutely sensational. I think he's a guy that comes into a team and he changes the whole culture of the team, right? So think of your Gavis or players like that who just kind of carry you with them, with their energy, with their charisma, with their ability as well, and he just puts the team on his shoulders, and he just does the job, right? He does a lot, and he does everything. He can be the number 10 to spearhead your attack. He can crash the box. He switches play. He can control. He can be the technical monster you need him to be. He can be a low 8, a high 8, a 10, anything, right? So he can be everything, and then on top of that, the complete player profile that he has, both physically and technically. There's also the mentality thing, which and he's a complete monster in his head, and he knows it. And the way that he stands up to those Serbian players who are all big and muscly and strong, he just goes and brushes his shoulder against them, and he doesn't mind, he doesn't care, right? He just goes for it, and that's a part of the Madrid culture as well. I think that once you do transfer to Madrid, you suddenly, you're top of the world. You are the best of the very best in your head, and that's part of the Madrid culture. The reason why they win so much, especially on the cup and tournament in the tournaments like that. So that's contagious, and I feel like as long as Bellingham performs, the whole team will have a little push. So even though the structure might not be perfect or the tactics might not be perfect, the platform is not perfect, as long as those individuals that have the differential quality, as long as they can push the team forward with their ability and their mentality, I think England should still be fine. Because at the international stage, that's often what makes or breaks the team, right? And they have that something to keep them going.
Well, England probably is on to the round of 16 with this win. I think so, given the group that they are in. I believe so. Otherwise, like we'll talk about whether that there's a risk on that. So round of 16 for them. And I think if you look at the possible, who they will face in the round of 16. I think till quarterfinal, England can actually go through based on what we are saying right now. But yeah, it's football, so you never know.
Mhm.
Talking about Serbia, though, does it make the next game absolutely a must win for them, or do they have an easy transition to the next round?
So who is their next game? Is it Slovenia or is it? I think it's Slovenia, right? I don't
Think
even know.
so.
But yeah, the next two games, yeah, they are must win. They are must win. But if I'm Serbia, this game actually gives me confidence because not only have they played one of the favorites, the main favorites of the whole tournament, and only lost 1-0, they also could have gotten a lot more, right? They could have actually taken at least a point from them, and that's big. And often Serbia are one of the dark horses of every tournament, due to their immense sporting potential. That's not just in football. That's across all the sporting categories. From handball to water polo to tennis. You have Serbian people all over the place. The same with most of the so-called Balkan countries, right? The Croatians and the Serbians, the Bosnians, the Slovenians. They are quite successful in all realms of sports, and I feel like that's one thing to know. So that they always come into tournaments as sort of a dark horse or someone to keep an eye on at the very least. So I think they have the pedigree, they have the quality to kind of make a stand. And this performance, in my mind at least, should actually push them a bit forward and be like, okay, we can actually do this because they can beat Slovenia. I feel like they are better than Slovenia, definitely. Now, they actually go through as second? It's a bit
But it's
sketchy.
a
I mean,
weird group, though, Tom, as of today.
yeah,
Like Denmark, Slovenia, there was a
yeah,
draw. So basically, we have
yeah,
England with one match played, one win. And the rest of them have all one matches played and no wins, right? They have a
yeah.
draw and they have a loss. So basically, three teams are on the cusp. Anybody can go through. So Serbia versus Slovenia, yeah, sure. Maybe Serbia they have Mitrovic, they have a few players, maybe. But Denmark is not going to be that easy. I feel
No,
so. So I guess both have equal chances in going through, unless you have some sort of like Denmark and England become super exciting and Denmark wins or whatever. I think, yeah, I think we still have chances between both these two teams. So if Denmark and Serbia is that game where it's decided who goes through, who do you
I think
have for
so. Initially, I had Denmark going through a second, but it,
case?
rema- I'm wondering if this performance actually sparks something in Serbia because it's a big performance. It's a loss, but it's a big performance. So I'm wondering if that does something to their head, right? In a positive way. I mean, in a positive way, because it should. It really should. I feel like it should, and if it does, they can take Denmark and they should take Slovenia. They should take Slovenia and they should go through as third at the very least, because I remember the third one goes through if they have more points than the other third place teams, if I'm not wrong. Something like that. Something, don't quote me on that, but it's something like that. They should be going through. Now, is it going to be a second or third? I don't know. At this moment, I would still lean towards Denmark, but on the condition that this game actually doesn't have that much of a impact on Serbia, which it should have a positive impact. I mean, so I would still go England, Denmark, Serbia, Slovenia. But in case this sparks something, then England, Serbia, Denmark, Slovenia. That would be one of the two options.
Well, we got to see that. But
Mhm,
again, like coming back to the game, I think England has on paper a great side, and I think they have all these players who can make that difference. Like when you see them for their club teams, they're pretty aggressive. They're very active on the box, especially with the level of managers there are in the Premier League. But today,
mhm.
inside the box, there were two shots from England and one shot from Croatia. Obviously, nobody reached the box in all of this. Um,
Serbia,
is
or
this is this because of some sort of lack of cohesion between the second line of attack and the first line of attack, which would be the midfield and the forward zone transition, where we're not getting, or we're not releasing the runners, or we are not being able to slip in the through ball, or we are not controlling the zone of 14, right? Is that the problem England had, or is it something else? And if that was a problem, how would you fix that in their next games? And
it's
Barca fans
just
asked if they were aggressive and a loss of momentum in the second half, Serbia could probably hurt England in the second half. Yeah, they could have, absolutely. Right. That's what we were saying. Like for a team with that much of capacity and so on, the game was kind of boring, to be entirely honest. And the other thing was, once that is there, so that was there. But even beyond that, England could have conceded. It could have happened, even with the way the game all worked out.
Yeah, they were very passive, Barca fans. They were very passive in the second half because they were afraid of this Serbian man marking press, because Serbia are so dominant physically that they can win those individual duels, and England were kind of scared of playing through that or playing over it. So playing over it was a good choice, because if you go through it and you lose those duels when you try and play out of the back, because Serbia can win those duels and should win those duels on paper, then you're in big trouble, right? We saw Trent losing a couple of balls deep. We saw Rice even doing some mistakes, making some mistakes in the second half as well. So they were very nervous playing through that aggressive and highly physical Serbian press, Serbian high mid to high block. So the choice was to go over it into Kane as a target. target man. So that was the idea. And it wasn't a bad idea on paper because that's the way to kind of bypass the physicality aspect and bypass the most dangerous areas where the high recoveries can actually lead to conceding a goal immediately, right? So that was kind of the idea behind that. On your point, Dev, what happened with their lack of shots? Well, it comes back to misprofiling the players because you had Foden who was quite invisible throughout the whole game. You had Kane and Saka pitting the back line. In theory, that would create more space in between the lines for Bellingham, Foden, and who was it? Well, whoever it was going into the zone. It was Trent, I think, at some points as well. But using Kane and Saka as just pins in the back for the back line, that's a waste of their talent and their profiles. Right? They can do it. They absolutely can because they have the quality to do almost any task you ask of them. But you put them in a position where they're not optimally used, and they are two of your three best players on the pitch. So if you misprofile them and then you put Trent in those pockets where he has to receive with his back to goal, when his best attribute is to face the play, open his body, and spray passes into the box or into the runners, then you're not giving yourself the best chance to win. And I feel like the attacking was mostly centered around individuals creating something with their own thing, right? Their own skill set, their own individuality, rather than the collective creating this structure or this environment in which they're all of their attributes were kind of optimized and all of their attributes were kind of enhanced. I didn't see that from England, right? I see a lot of individuals like Bellingham and Saka and Rice doing what they do best, but as a collective, as a unit, I didn't see anything that kind of enhanced all those individuals that need to be enhanced. If that makes sense, then. So in a way, it was Southgate's platforming that I talked about earlier. I feel like that's still the main issue. And then the other issue was the lack of width and depth because you just didn't have anything to attack the wings. And then Serbia could just be narrow, be compact in the middle, and that's all they had to do. They had to outmuscle the England squad in the middle and double up on Kane because Kane had like 3 touches in the whole half. I think so. They, this worked. The plan worked, and were it not for Saka's brilliance and Bellingham being everywhere, this could have ended badly for England.
True, but in a team which has like Rice, which has Bellingham, which has Kane, which has Saka, all these players, Foden, Walker, all these players, right? You would have expected that somebody would have marshaled that midfield and made that connection with the forward or release Harry Kane or what have you, which we didn't see. Probably, yeah. To your point, beating the man mark completely through long balls and making Harry Kane the target man. Probably yes, but even that wasn't that successful, right? The goal
No,
actually happened through Bellingham. So, do England need to relook into how they're positioning that midfield, or was this the right strategy? Or are we going to see more of this in the subsequent games that England are going to play? And with that, like we'll probably have to wrap it up. But any
yeah.
final thoughts on what you
I
felt?
mean, I would, if I was an England fan, I would hope they would change things up because this wasn't a good platform for the players. So they need someone. I feel like Foden was kind of not good enough to be. It feels weird to say because we're talking about a Premier League player of the season, but when he plays for England in this setup, he's just not maximized at all. So I feel like there had to be a different player on that left side of the pitch to kind of alter the dynamics a little bit. The midfield, yeah, true. With Trent Alexander-Arnold being there next to Rice most of the time, and Walker dropping deep into the back three, I didn't feel England had the tools to control the game because Trent was in situations where he would receive the ball with uncomfortable body positions. Was not used to that. He was not really comfortable in those areas at all. So I feel like that would have to change. Rice is obviously one of the best midfielders on the planet, and he still had a good game, but he couldn't do it by himself. Right? He needed someone next to him to kind of even the odds and burden that shoulder that the burden a bit more. So I feel like Southgate will have to look into it. Yes, I would predict a slight change in the formation. Um, if Shaw is fit, I'm not sure if he is. Is Shaw fit? I don't even know. So if
No,
Luke Shaw is fit, no, he's not fit. He's not fit. Yeah, that explains it. That explains it actually because he would play on the left back And that would be a much better compliment for someone like Foden, for example. That would work. That could work. But if he's not fit, then Trippier probably stays there. And then in front of him, there has to be a natural winger. There has to be someone with holding with or an attacking space. It has to be someone who can be an outlet, someone with legs. And that's how you change. And then also, Harry Kane needs to be allowed to be Harry Kane. He's not just target man. He's not. That's not how you use Harry Kane. He needs to drop deep. He needs to play man. He needs to be more involved. Right. You need to have him on the ball because that's who he is. And he's going to score the goals. He always does. Right. He'll be there to score the goals, but you need to involve him
He
a
does
bit
that
more.
for Bayern pretty well. I mean,
He does.
he's had
I
a
mean, yeah,
phenomenal season for Bayern, to be
yeah.
entirely honest. Okay, so great time for Jude Bellingham fans because obviously Bellingham got the winner. So great power to him, and hopefully he goes on to with this performance and then does many more in this tournament, and then we have a player of the tournament maybe from Bellingham. We'll obviously get to know more about how England play as we watch into the subsequent games, and whether Southgate makes those tweaks or we continue this way because there's this whole thing about England bringing it home. Will they bring it home this year? That's the question. And then finally, I think as a Barca fan, what I feel good about is that it's such a difference that a coach can make to a team. Like you watch Liverpool, you watch Man City, you watch Arsenal under their coaches and how they play, and then you see the same players performing in another setup in the way I think, yeah, with Flick coming in for Barca. Hopefully, we will have much better performances with the same team that we had last year. So that's the hope that I go back with. And people, this is just the first or second time that we're doing it. So we'll continue doing it. We're learning also. We're having fun in the process. So join, send us your comments and tell us how to improve or what have you and bring your comments in. Like Barca fan, thank you so much for joining us. And then we'll obviously take some of these and in time possibly make more pieces of content out of that. Dom, anything else to say before we finally wrap up?
No, not really. But yeah, but just thank you for joining. This is our first time, so it's kind of shaky. It's kind of late. It's kind of it's improv at this best. But you know what? As long as you enjoy it, we're happy. And thank you for joining us. Make sure to like and make sure to spread the word. We do have a blog. We do have a podcast. Obviously, YouTube channel. So make sure to follow that content because we're posting a lot. We'll try and post as much as we can during these Euros because it's a fun time to be a football fan, not just a Barca fan. You know, it's a bit of a fresh thing for us and a bit of a digression from me. Let's put it that way. But yeah, fun things, and we have more plans. So stay tuned.
There you go. Have a good one and see you tomorrow on the next game.